Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Welcome everyone to the Halaqah podcast. I'm your host, Brother Muhammad Jawad, and along with my brother, Muhammad Hani, we want to begin by congratulating you on the birth of Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ali ibn Abi Talib.
This is also our first podcast episode, inshallah, many to come. We chose the title, The Halaqa, for this series because the Halaqa is a space where we gain knowledge, where we sit and interact with each other, where we learn from each other, and where we gain wisdom from and insights from one another. So, inshallah, our goal and vision is to bring unique Islamic discussions to the community, engage the brothers and sisters in learning, and inshallah, learn ourselves this beautiful religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on these blessed occasions. Inshallah ta'ala, we'd like to start this humble effort, inshallah, one in many to come.
Inshallah, thank you so much, Brother Muhammad Hani, for the wonderful wonderful words. Inshallah, today with the first podcast, we have an esteemed scholar who has been a service and a blessing to the community. Please help me welcome Samahat al-Sayyid Muhammad Hassan al-Shara. فليتفضل وصحبة والصلاة على محمد وآل محمد.
Assalamu alaikum, Sayyid. How are you
Alaikum
doing?
assalam wa rahmatullah. Assalamu alaikum to my dear brothers,
عليكم
Muhammad
السلام
Jawad
ورحمة
and
الله.
Muhammad Hani, the two Muhammads.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for giving me the honor, and I extend to you both and all those who are watching on this inaugural first episode a warm
Inshallah.
congratulations and Mawlid Amir al-Mu'mineen Mubarak to all of you.
Thank you.
I
Thank
am
you as well.
I am ecstatic to be the first of this what would be one of many, as you mentioned,
Inshallah.
on the Halaqa program. So Mubarakin to you all.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Jazakallah khairan. Today we want to discuss a very important topic. We are approaching the mid of this holy month of Rajab, this month of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we want to start off by perhaps discussing the virtues and the extreme significance of these days we're in, because oftentimes we don't realize how important the days we are in and what effect it has on our spirituality and our nearness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And of course, we want to discuss the number one way of getting near to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is none other than the wilayah of our beloved master, Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, as we approach the days of his Mawlid. So we're so blessed and fortunate to have you, Sayyid, here. Sayyid, I think we want to start off by discussing the significance of this month. Is there something, I know we hear a lot about the significance of this month, and we feel the spirituality, at least in the masajids and in our communities, the spirituality of this month. What are some advices that our Aimma Ma'sumin alayhimus salam, and particularly some advices you would focus on for our shabab today in this holy month to work on, to build on themselves and to improve, and why?
Basically, the holy month of Rajab has been recognized as an extremely significant month within Islamic history and theology. Historically, because it has many wonderful births of various leaders, from the Imams and those who were aides to the holy Imams of Ahlul Bayt. Births such as Imam al-Baqir around the 1st of Rajab, Imam al-Hadi's Wilada and his Shahada right after, Imam Muhammad al-Jawad alayhi salam. You also have the Shahada of Sayyidah Zainab salamullahi alayha. And at the crown of this, of course, you have the Wilada of Amir al-Mu'mineen on the 13th. You have the Mab'ath al-Nabawi, right? So you got all of these historical days of significance associated with the month of Rajab. But additionally, you do have spiritual for purposes of just Allah giving us opportunities to get closer to Him. Allah doesn't have to give us different ways and avenues. He could have just kept it as one, correct? But He said, no, there are multiple ways to get to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you see the month of Rajab having days such as Laylatul Raghaib, the first Thursday of the month of Rajab, is called the night of desires. On this night, you are to worship Allah, pray, supplicate, fast. This is the night all of your desires, al-Raghaib, they're all granted and accepted. That doesn't have an association to a historic event. It's just there, you know. Additionally, you have Layal al-Bayt or Ayyam al-Bayt. These are basically the 3 nights of bright radiance, they call it. Abyad, meaning the light and that whiteness of the purity of light on the 13th, the 14th, and the 15th. It may not necessarily be associated to a real world event, it's just there. Because Allah emphasized that the holy month of Rajab will be an opportunistic time for all of you to get closer to Him, where it's by honoring the births that occurred or venerating the martyrdoms of like Imam al-Hadi and Sayyidah Zainab, or even these events, Layali al-Bayt, or for example, al-Raghaib, and even the Mab'ath al-Nabawi, which I feel culminates the best of both worlds. Historically, a very impeccable event, and theologically and spiritually, where it's on this day, the culmination of all of the divine messages from all the prophets come and crystallize on the 27th of Rajab with the Mab'ath al-Nabawi Sharif. So this month is amazing. And the Prophet of Islam described it as Rajab is the month in which the hasanat, it's called Rajab al-Asab, because asab meaning that which pours profusely, because of how many good deeds and thawab and blessings and barakah pour profusely upon the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so this is a time that we should definitely take advantage of. And what better way than to honor the nafs of Rasulullah on such a beautiful day as well, among wonderful brothers as well.
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. One thing I heard and read upon that was very vital in the month of Rajab was fasting. And then there's obviously various narrations that talk about the importance of vitality of fasting. If you could maybe comment on that and maybe some narrations you've heard about and maybe some amal along with fasting that the brothers and sisters could perform during this month, inshallah, to gain ajr and thawab.
You know, Rajab beautifully, Muhammad Jawad, it comes across as like a precursor to the holy month of Ramadan. So you have Rajab, you have all these months, and it's associated with the holy month of Ramadan in a manner that is very unique. Hence, the emphasis of fasting before the holy month by about 2 months is really emphasized. Hence, fasting in the month of Rajab is tantamount to fasting akin to the month of Ramadan. We have these traditions. We also see that among the greatest a'mal during the shahr of Rajab is to do i'tikaf. I'tikaf is to reside at the house of Allah for a number of days, 2 days, and you don't leave. But in that time period, you're fasting as well. And we do have the tradition by Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam, to which he clearly says that on the day of judgment, there will be a call made on the day of judgment. Ayn al-Rajabiyun. Where are those who used to revive the holy month of Rajab? The description then is as followed. There will be a group who will emerge radiating, illuminating, outshining all of the inhabitants of Qiyamah. Imagine all these people that have ever lived. These people will outshine all of them. Why? Because of their affiliation to the month of Rajab. Ya Allah, what did they do? They completely took advantage of this opportunistic chance by fasting. Hence the fast is emphasized and highlighted really great. So we should definitely take advantage of that.
There is narrations I was reading the other day that one of the Ma'soom, forgive me if I'm not quoting the exact words of the narration, I'm just paraphrasing. For every day you fast in this holy month, Allah closes one gate of hell.
Exactly.
And for one who fasts 7 days in this month, Allah closes all gates of hell. And one who fasts 8 days in this month, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opens every single door of heaven for them.
Ahsant.
So it is a great honor and a great ritual of fasting in this month, because it does not only have a physical benefit to you as preparing you for Shahr Ramadan and making those fasts easier and more spiritual on you, but it also gives you that spiritual benefit in the akhirah, inshallah ta'ala.
Ahsant, very beautifully, man. A door to hell closes, a door to heaven opens.
And I want to kind of add on the importance of this month as a precursor to Ramadan. So it's kind of like one of the scholars was giving an example of this month. It's kind of like when you want to plant a tree. Obviously, if you want it to grow within a certain timeline, you plant it a couple months before. So it's the same thing for the month of Ramadan, getting ready. It's important to start in Rajab, Sha'ban, then obviously the month of Ramadan. So it's important to reap the benefits, like you mentioned, fasting. And there's also the holy nights, which obviously that entails reading Ad'iyah, Quran, and Salat, all the way. I think just that it shows the importance of the month of Ramadan as well, because it just shows how the month of Ramadan requires. The month of Ramadan doesn't start on the first of Ramadan. In reality, it starts in the first of Rajab, getting ready, getting yourself spiritually ready. So I think yani these months, obviously, like you mentioned, we should take advantage of this month. And then one thing I want to kind of, I guess we'll ask the Sayyid first regarding that matter. You mentioned that there are certain martyrdoms and certain births.
Yeah.
So I guess starting with early in the month of Imam al-Hadi,
Alayhi salam.
alayhi salam. So I feel like, and obviously for good reason, Imam Ali gets a lot of spotlight during this month as well as during the other or majority of program. But I think the brothers and sisters fail to recognize the status of other imams, which obviously they've done wonderful things. So I think
Particularly the latter
the
imams,
latter
Rahimah.
imams, exactly,
I agree.
exactly.
I agree.
I feel if you could maybe share with us a story that resonates with you regarding Imam al-Hadi that we
Alayhi
can
salam.
all, alayhi salam, that we can all benefit from, inshallah, tonight.
First of all, I echo your sentiments. The holy month of Rajab is a time that should wake us up. And sometimes there are things that have gone underlooked and underappreciated and understudied. Among them is this significant personality within world history. I don't want to cocoon Al Imam Ali al Hadi just to Islamic history, because the Ahlul Bayt are beacons of light for all those who
All of
wish to
humanity.
gain closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You don't have to be a Muslim Shi'i Ithni Ashari to appreciate these individuals. Hence why the Ahlul Bayt are adored by non-Muslims, by Christians, by whoever it may be, the world of the non-Shia as well. And part of the reason why they haven't been fully appreciated, and we can never fully do justice, Muhammad Hadi, to the Ahlul Bayt, you know what I mean? But it's because our end, we haven't given the world the chance to. Sometimes we cocoon the members of Ahlul Bayt to ourselves. And maybe we need to do more in propagating and sharing these messages. So I love the idea of getting a chance to share one of my favorite stories about Imam al-Hadi alayhi salam. There was this guy named Yunus al-Naqash. I really like the story because it relates to having tawakkul ala Allah. And again, tawakkul is one of those things where everyone will reach a point where they've exhausted all their efforts. And at this point, they say, look, it's in your hands. I did everything I could, whether it's like a critical or urgent, let's say medical emergency. That's really, subhanAllah.
Life tragedy or
They
something.
say an atheist is a confident atheist until there's a bit of turbulence on the plane.
فإذا ركبوا في الفلك دعوا الله مخلصين له
Ahsan,
الدين.
beautiful. Or for example, the person who doesn't pray will begin to worship Allah when it's like the lifeline is hanging by a thread for someone that they love.
Fitrat Allah.
Exactly.
Yes.
It's the innate essence, the fitrah, right? So this story, I really find it beautiful because it taps to this concept that everyone can relate to. Yunus al-Naqash is this guy that would carve designs on gems and jewels, and he was a craftsman basically. And he comes one day to the house of Imam al-Hadi just banging on the door. He's like, Yabna Rasulillah, adrikni, help me, what's going on? The Imam confronts him, what's happening? And it appears that this guy recognizes Imam al-Hadi's importance and status, hence he goes to him for help. So he says, listen, I have been commissioned by, I believe it's al-Mutawakkil al-Abbasi, he has a gemstone. It's a nice one, it's large, and he wants me to write the name of his daughter, one of his daughters on it. The problem is, as soon as I gave the first tap on the chisel with my hammer, it split in half. Mutawakkil is going to crucify me, ya Maulana. طبعا Mutawakkil, you know who this guy is.
Yes.
He's tried to divert
Dictator,
the
tyrant,
horrible.
whatever.
He tried to divert the Furat over 40 times over the grave of Imam al-Hussein,
Allah.
just to get rid of it, to destroy it, and he successfully destroyed it a couple times as well. So this is not someone you want to get angry. So Yunus recognizes this. What happens is Al-Imam al-Hadi says, have tawakkul. Have reliance on Allah. It's like in this moment when the dictator is going to chase you, it's very hard to grab onto any tawakkul, any reliance, any hope.
Exactly.
But when the Imam of your time tells you to do that, just do it. You did your best. Khalas, it was out of your control. Tawakkal ala Allah and just believe in Him. Have faith, don't give up. The man goes, the next day he returns, knocks on the door, but this time with a full different face and expression. He's like, what happened? He said, as soon as I returned home, one of the workers for the Khalifa knocked on my door later that day and said to me that the Khalifa has an updated request. Basically, his other daughter got jealous that her sister was getting the gemstone. So he requests if you could make it into two. Yunus, when he says, he's like, I'll think about it.
Subhanallah, subhanallah. That's
Tawakkul ala Allah here, don't worry. If it's in Allah's hands, it's going to happen in your interest.
And this actually shows us and demonstrates us the role that the Aima play in our lives and the insights that they have that we don't have, the wisdoms
Absolutely.
they have that we don't have. And one part of that wisdom, as you mentioned, is tawakkul ala Allah,
Beautiful.
like relying on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to achieve something. And Imam al-Hadi really embodies this because you imagine Imam al-Hadi, correct me if I'm wrong, said he became an imam at the age of 5.
Young, very young.
Yeah, very young, right? And people didn't believe in his imama until they saw his knowledge and he demonstrated it. Many people did not believe in him. So that point of tawakkul ala Allah, that at the end of the day, I'm doing my responsibility and Allah take cares of rest of it. Things that are out of my control, things that are not in my hands, they're in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. At the end of the day, I don't have control over them. Allah has control over everything.
Beautiful.
So Imam Hadi alayhi salam really embodies that, because even in his imama, even in his leadership, even through the struggles that the community put him through the different sects that were emerging in the Shi'ism, through the different people who doubted in the abilities of Imam Hadi alayhi salam, despite his despite his ilm and his knowledge and his spirituality, just because of his young age. And oftentimes we see this in our society today, where a lot of people doubt one another because of their age. We don't realize,
ageists.
yeah, they're ageist. They don't realize that the Imam was sent by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah had appointed him. At that point, the Imam's tawakkul is so high that he's not worried about what all these people say about me. Rather, I'm focusing on my duties and responsibilities that Allah gives me. And that is a real, that really embodies what imama means as a whole.
Yeah, a true
There-
test of faith is when you, not to cut you off, Habibi, is when you are told to follow something that is out of the ordinary. But because it's from an authoritative source, you have to obey it. And we've seen this movie before. You know, Jesus spoke in the cradle, right? And Imam al-Jawad was young and he defied all of people's expectations. So Imam al-Hadi, yes, we do get called and picked on sometimes, particularly by Shia phobia. They'll make fun of us, like, oh, you believe in a Mahdi. This man was child at one point, 5 years old, and he became your Imam. Seriously? Why put an age restriction on God's divine appointed people? You know, why put age limits? If he's 5 years old or he's 2,000 years old, we've seen baby Jesus speak, and we've seen Sheikh Nuh in his 2000s or whatever speak. And so for us, it doesn't matter. We just obey our Lord because we've seen this movie before and we know how it's going to end.
Ahsan. And I want to kind of comment on the topic of tawakkul and tied to one of the figures that actually have a date in Shahr Rajab,
Yes.
which is Sayyidah Zainab. So obviously we're all familiar with the story when she stepped in the palace of Ibn Ziyad, and then he tried to torment her by saying, you know, how do you see what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has done with your brother? And we all famously know the response, I see nothing but beauty. And I think that's, people fail to understand the significance of this statement, what I guess knowledge lies behind it.
Yeah.
The essence of this statement is tawakkul on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Where did that beauty stem from? The beauty stemmed from seeing Allah's system, seeing Allah's divine decree,
Beautiful.
knowing that Rasulullah and her mother Sayyidah Fatima told her that this is gonna happen. And like you mentioned, this is out of the ordinary. The Imam of your time getting slaughtered along with his family members, along with your brothers and some of the sisters during in the campfires passed away. So that, I think, embodies the definition of tawakkul. And that's the beauty that Sayyidah Zainab saw. The beauty in having, when one has tawakkul on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that's beautiful because you know nothing that's happening or everything that's happening from you is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And everything that comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is beautiful. That's why, and inshallah, maybe you guys can also comment on maybe some stories that resonate with you from the life of Sayyidah Zainab. But that's something that really stood out to me. And then I think people should realize that the essence of the beauty that Sayyidah Zainab saw was in the tawakkul of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
I love that. And absolutely, I think on the day of her wafat, this is definitely an element that should be highlighted. That, you know, what gave her that strength was that so long as it's within the realm of Allah. And interestingly, the question was posed in that manner. كيف رأيت صنع الله بأخيك? So you're going to bring Allah, everything's beautiful. If it's Allah, it's beautiful. And that goes back to the whole idea of, look, I just put my full reliance on him and I know he's going to take care of it. It's okay.
Subhanallah.
And these are not just stories we hear and we become impressed for. We have to use them out in our lives.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So we'll go through, pain. 2024 was not nice to us.
Oh,
I'll be very honest with you. If
The
I'd
wars,
probably
the
have to pay
battles.
kafara for
Yeah.
lying if I said 2024 was nice. But we get through it because
alhamdulillah.
we have an example in the manifestations of sabr, of tawakkul, of robust forbearance, Lady Zainab and her counterparts. So for that reason, this is definitely an aspect that couldn't be further highlighted or better highlighted than the way you put it.
And that,
I think this madhab of tashayyu actually takes advantage of this more than any other school of thought in Islam and generally any other religion, any other school of thought. Looking at the examples and role models we have, such as Imam al-Hadi, Sayyidah Zainab, Amir al-Mu'mineen, which we're about to discuss inshallah soon, Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, Imam al-Hassan, Rasulullah himself, the Quranic examples that we have of Isa alayhi salam, Ibrahim alayhi salam, Nuh alayhi salam, and all these examples. At the end of the day, we look at these as stories. A lot of people read these as fictional novels and stories. We look at them as means of improving our lives, as using these these examples, as the Quran itself calls them, uswatul hasana. Rasulullah was uswatul hasana, the best of exemplars. Every aspect of their lives are means for us to assess our lives and understand where we are going and which path we are treading. And I think Rajab as a spiritual month also embodies this, right? Being careful about the path or looking at the path we're treading throughout the year. A lot of people know this as we just passed the New Year's, right? A lot of people know Shahr Ramadan as their New Year's, right? In the sense that Laylatul
ritual
Qadr,
revival kind of.
yeah, like my
Yeah.
New Year, right? Like my Ramadan
Do self, I
resolutions,
just
yeah.
cleanse myself
Laylatul
and
Qadr,
cleanse, yeah.
yeah, like I did all these a'mal at night, 15 Sha'ban, Laylatul Bara'a. I did all these a'mal at night. What is my goal? What is to come forward? And I think Alhamdulillah, the Quran has made it very easy for us. The Ahlul Bayt have made it very easy for us with their role models and with their examples, right? Whatever happened to them in life, if it happened to them, if they were able to handle it, if they were able to take it, we can embody that to a certain percentage. We can use that. We can use that as a motivation. Why do we discuss Ashura every year? Why do we bring Muharram every year? What's the purpose? Because it's supposed to revive something within us. Rahimallah man ahya amrana. May Allah's mercy be upon the one who revives our affairs. So I think that's one thing we can get to, one lesson we can see from these short, I want to call them frames of the lives of the esteemed companions such as Sayyidah Zainab and of course the Imam Ma'sumin and all the Ma'sumin alayhimus salam.
Beautiful.
I want to kind of just jump in. Sorry, that's why I feel like it's important that we realize the events that we have in the specifically in the Islamic calendar. Because if you look at the Islamic calendar, many people just pay attention to like, okay, we have 5 prayers a day, or they look at the births and deaths. But if you analyze like every month in the Islamic calendar, there's always certain days that are good for amal, certain days like we mentioned births and deaths, and I think that's important to the aspect of revival. Because many of us know, like, I guess we want to call them the famous days, the first of Ramadan, the end of Ramadan, and like these important days, which are important in their own respects. But if we realize the amount of, I guess I want to say, beneficial days, or the amount of wonderful days we have in each month, it truly serves as a revival. Because if we take a look at every month is filled with a death or a birth of a certain companion, of a certain imam, of a certain nabi, so that allows us to learn from their stories, like you mentioned.
Subhanallah.
And inshallah, I mean, we can be of those who embodies
Of course.
their lessons.
And this is actually very crucial. Forgive us as we're speaking over.
No, I love
you,
these. These are beautiful reminders.
This actually reminds me of a verse of the Quran where when Bani Israel was feeling a bit down and a bit hopeless, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told Musa, فَذَكِّرُمْ بِأَيَّامِ اللَّهِ, remind them of the days of God, right? And these are ayyamillah that we're in, right? The ayyam that we're in, Muharram, Shahr Ramadan, Rajab, Sha'ban.
Beautiful.
Any month, any day is ayyam, the day of God, right? These are all days of God. And we're living at a time where our religion is being attacked, where we're weak in our faith, a lot of us, unfortunately, because of the environment we're living in. So these days that we're discussing and these personalities that we're discussing, it's a Quranic command. Allah told Musa alayhi salam to remind people of the days of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is something that is crucial and essential to not only building our iman, but also building our communities because it gives us a sense of direction.
I love that. I love that so much. You know, you said something that reminded me of a narration. The Prophet of Islam, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, himself narrated that Rajab is my month, Shahri, and then that Sha'ban is the month of Allah, and Ramadan is the month of my ummah. And I think that dichotomy, or rather juxtaposition between the Prophet, Allah, and the ummah seems to draw that all of this is to be the focus, that you should prioritize your faith in circumstances that may not even be convenient. Through Rasulullah, you should always remember Allah in such a godless circumstance, and you should always think about others, as the ummah is highly emphasized in Shahr Ramadan. And I think, you know, if you just, it doesn't take a genius to realize that Ramadan is one of the most philanthropic, charitable opportunities. That not only are we now talking about helping others, those who are underprivileged, but we're also feeling what they might go through. And beautifully, Shahr Rajab helps us as a precursor to get there eventually, because Shahr Ramadan is going to hit some people hard. Um, Last year, we were with people and fasted together with certain family members. That this Shahr Ramadan, we don't have them anymore. They're no longer with us, and so it's going to be and this is the cycle of life. It's the process of this dunya. But at the same time, it's considered the month of the ummah. And so that's why it's highly emphasized and recommended to invite people over, to have an iftar, to think about others. If you invalidated a fast wrongfully, you compensate that by paying someone who's
Subhanallah.
underprivileged, giving them a meal, kafara, fidya. So there's an emphasis on the self, the prophet, God, and the ummah. And I think these three things are definitely important throughout the entire year, so that we can have not only a word service, New Year, New Me, but a legit New Year, New Me.
Inshallah, inshallah.
Inshallah, inshallah.
And then I want to kind of transition to another very famous figure whose birth corresponds to this holy month, um, Imam Muhammad al-Baqir,
Alayhi salam.
alayhi salam. And one, I think for me, what that resonates so much with Imam al-Baqir is the alim. I mean, his name comes from the one, like a plethora of knowledge, the one
Yeah.
like bursts in knowledge,
Splits knowledge
splits
through.
knowledge. Ahsan. So I think specifically for me, coming from a science related major student,
What's your major?
Neuroscience.
MashaAllah, you're dangerous, man.
I'll be
Run
able to
away.
read minds.
La ilaha illallah.
Run away.
That's a hypnotic thing.
No, I mean, to be honest, it's a very interesting because
I love it.
it combines like the realms of psychology, biology, and into
Beautiful.
learning the anatomy of the brain. So it's very interesting, alhamdulillah. And I guess going back to the topic of knowledge, the Imam al-Baqir, he just, for me, the reason why he resonates so much is the emphasis he had on knowledge, the discoveries that were made during his time. And I maybe you can comment on some story
sure,
you have
sure.
as well regarding, I guess, the importance of knowledge in Islam, the importance of knowledge, and what Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam brought to the religion of Islam and his vitality in that specific region.
I love it. Yeah, Al-Imam Muhammad al-Baqir, finally, where it was a dark world that didn't really value the knowledge of the Ahlul Bayt, Al-Imam al-Baqir used the opportunity that he was given to showcase this. Hence, before even his birth, this was foreshadowed. يبقر العلم بقرة, and that he would split knowledge and dissect it very thoroughly. By doing so, he showcased to us that as a Muslim, it's important to gain knowledge, to study, to learn, to improve yourself intellectually, to be literate, to pursue the sciences that are out there. And I think many people might have the wrong idea that in order to be an obedient religious individual, to embrace religiosity, you must sacrifice like science. And that may be the case for other, and I don't want to say this to like, bash other religions or anything, but it may be the case for other ways of life. That in order to accept this, you must let go of some of the scientific truths that are out there. Some people believe the earth is 6,000 years old. Very hardcore evangelicals will tell you as such because, these are the resources we have. In Islam, no, you don't have to sacrifice one for the other.
Mm.
Our religion is the most scientific, centric religion there is. It's our Imams of Ahlul Bayt who showcase that.
Yeah.
Imam al-Baqir, yes, while teaching the fields of Islamic jurisprudence and theology, he was also discussing philosophy, anatomy, biology, chemistry, like
Subhanallah.
such as Jabir bin Hayyan, who's called the father of medicine and chemistry, studied under Imam al-Sadiq and Imam al-Baqir. And so I really appreciate that when people, mu'mineen such as yourself, others, that can come through and say, look, I'm going to show you the best of both worlds. To be a practicing Muslim is to take the examples of Imam al-Baqir and Imam al-Sadiq. And one thing that really gets to me and I love a lot is, yes, while he was like a teacher to many, he was also despised by many.
Mm.
That's normal, It's always the good fruit that people want to pursue. People don't go after that which is rotten or spoiled. It's that which is ripe. And Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam is like that to the ummah. Everyone else might be rotten, but he is perfect. And so people pursue this. And you had a moment where, um, yes, he was confronted by a number of debaters who came forth and wanted to put him to shame by asking him very complicated questions. But, you know, answer after answer, he would showcase that. Even they brought forth a non Muslim Christian monk and he started asking him questions from both Bible and, Quran. And questions like, which time in history did one fourth of humanity get wiped out? And he's like, yeah, when Qabil killed Habil, it was Adam, Eve, Habil, Qabil. One kills the other. One fourth of humanity wiped out. He's like, what, really? He's like, yeah. He's like, which case in history were there two brothers who were twins, both born on the same day? They both born on the same day. They died on the same day, but one was 50, one was 150. Everyone was like, there's no way he'll answer this. He's like, yeah, Aziz and Uzair. Uzair, the one in the Quran that is reported to be described as the son of God to the Jewish community, how they viewed him as such. He's like, yeah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he had a brother. When Uzair was walking, he saw a ruined town and he says, Ya Allah, who's going to revive all this? People are dead. Are they really going to be revived? And so Allah had him die. He then brought him back 50 years later, and then he lived another 50 years. And so his brother was what? His brother was 100, the other one was like 150. But they died on the same day. And he's like, okay, which fast in history was it halal to eat and drink? He's like, the fast of Sayyidah Maryam. Her fast was just to be quiet. And answer after answer. They're like, okay, what increases and never decreases? He's like, your age. He's like, what decreases and it keeps going on and never increases, like time. And he's like, no matter what you throw at him, he's always answering. He's like, okay, where is God? He's like, show me where he isn't. I'll show you where he is. He's like, when was God? He's like, show me when he wasn't. I'll show you when he was. As answer after answer. And Imam al-Baqir is like, look, these are elementary 101 to me. Don't waste your time. But if you want an answer, I'll give you. But we have better things to do. And you can't humble the Ahlul Bayt. You have to be humble or be humbled.
SubhanAllah. I mean, we have examples of Imam Muhammad Baqir and Imam Sadiq alayhi salam. They had students who would also go out and debate some of these individuals. Imam Sadiq trained and emphasized to his students specifically to learn this skill of understanding different religions and being able to talk to them.
Yeah.
Like, there are examples where, for example, someone comes and tries asking a question from Imam Sadiq. He's like, go ask the student of mine.
Yeah.
And this shows us what the imam expect from us at the end of the day, right? Like, because the students of the imams were the Shias, were followers, were people who embody who wanted to embody the qualities of the imam, who saw the imams as role models and examples. So by looking at the lives of the ashab and looking at what the imam expected from some of their ashab, we can see what the imam Ma'sumin expect from us.
Hani, do you know what that shows you? It shows you that Ahlul Bayt expect us not to be narrow-minded. That all you know is what you were taught at Sunday school. That it's important to also know what's going on out there. At the same time, being confident and retaining your identity as an unapologetic Muslim. Sometimes it helps to actually look at the alternative. If how do you know you're on the truth? Sometimes the best way to know is to compare the other truth claimants. because it's like, if you were not born on this path, would you have embraced it? And that's like a very deep existential question we should all be asking ourselves. Did I learn my religion or did I inherit it? Because that means if I wasn't born onto this path, I may not have embraced it. Let me reach a point, we should all go through this journey. Let me reach a point where intellectually I can confidently say that I know enough right now that if I wasn't a Muslim, I would embrace Islam.
SubhanAllah.
We have to do that because it's like
Ahsan.
otherwise you just won a lottery, buddy. Good job. You just happen to be born into
Into
a beautiful
Islamic
family.
family.
I mean, this is the same thing that the kuffar said, and Allah condemned them for it because we followed our forefathers, right?
Exactly.
That's the argument of the
Ahsan.
kuffar.
Yeah, it's like
Right, so there's
would
no
reply,
difference.
They would reply to Rasulullah, it's Surah Yasin, لِتُنذِرَ قَوْمًا مَا أُنذِرَ
آبَاؤُهُمْ
آبَاؤُهُمْ فَهُمْ غَافِلُونَ. It's hard to guide a group of people whose forefathers refused to be guided. It's like, nope, we were always on this path. Hold on, you know you're always on this path. Good, you're always, but you're always on a path of jahl. Let me introduce to you the path, the way, the light.
SubhanAllah.
But you have to get to a point where you're mature enough to embrace that. You wanted to
Oh, Father, sorry.
add?
I was gonna say because you mentioned Surah Yasin. First of all, you were talking about how they used to follow what their forefathers used to say. That's why
Yeah.
Islam emphasizes, and in the Quran, like you mentioned, I want to comment on one verse in Surah Yasin regarding scientific discoveries. So just backstory about the importance of this verse to me. When I first came, or when I was overseas, I moved back here. Many people told me that if you want to pursue the field of science, like you mentioned, it's like, oh, you have to split religion and you have to split school. They're two separate entities. But in reality, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, Imam Ali in Nahj al-Balagha, Rasulullah, as well as the rest of the Imams, they showed the vitality of combining religion. And in reality, not combining, they're intermeshed into each other. They're not two
Exactly.
independent factors.
Exactly.
And then one of the verses that really stood out to me during my discovery of science in the Quran, and coming from, because to me science was something that was very dear to my heart, specifically come from a science related major student. So one verse in Surah Yasin is where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes the orbits of the planets. And one, I'm trying to remember the exact phrasing, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لا الشمس ينبغي لها أن I can't
أن تدرك
تدرك القمر ولا الليل سابق النهار وكل في فلك يسبحون. SubhanAllah, if you analyze this verse, he says, ولا الليل سابق النهار. So just looking at that verse, we can often like just passively read over it. But the other day I was looking at NASA's website. I looked up, I said, what comes first, the day or the night? SubhanAllah, they say night comes before day. In the Quran, what did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say in chronological order? He says the night, he mentions night first, then he mentions day. And then he says, كل في فلك يسبحون. So one of the ulama was narrating this. They said, and I believe they asked one of the Imma or Rasulullah, like, what do they mean by this verse? They're like, imagine you're like in a body of water and you're just floating. That's how the planets are. And that's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in the Quran 1400 years ago. He's mentioning how each planet has its own orbit. Each planet. So it just shows the emphasis of science and education in general in Islam, as well as the importance it had in the eyes of al-Bayt and the eyes of La'imma. That's why, to me, at least that verse, I really had, like, every time Surah Yasin's mentioned, that verse just comes to my mind. I really want to, like, comment on it because it's truly wonderful. It's truly wonderful.
You know, the Quran, I'm going to be very confident in this because we are and we should be, is the most accurate manuscript of literature that has ever been produced. Because
No doubt.
It's produced from the one who fashioned science, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
The creator of all creation.
And Allah won't conflict himself, won't contradict himself.
He can't.
And so, precisely, the most logical, rational, reasonable. And the Quran is not a book of science. It's a book of truth. But part of truth and haqa'iq is science. And there are those who won't believe until they see, give me proof from a scientific worldview. Whereas the Quran comes and tells you, look, there are many paths. I think we said it earlier. There are many ways to get to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But if you want from that direction, that's also going to be found in the verses as well. And that famous verse in Surah Al-Anbiya, أَوَلَمْ يَرَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا أَنَّ السَّمَاوَاتَ وَالْأَرْضَ كَانَتَا رَتْقًا فَفَتَقْنَاهُمَا وَجَعَلْنَا مِنَ الْمَاءِ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ حَيٍّ. Now, have those who disbelieved. And look, you're talking to those who are disbelievers. Look, if historical truths don't work with you, if reminders that are deep don't work with you, spiritual, okay, how about scientific? You know, have those who disbelieved not considered, أَوَلَمْ يَرَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا أَنَّ السَّمَاوَاتَ وَالْأَرْضَ كَانَتَا رَتْقًا, that they are all one joined entity. And then we expanded it. In Surah Al-Dhariyat, Allah says, وَالسَّمَاءَ بَنَيْنَاهَا بِأَيْدٍ وَإِنَّا مُوسِعُونَ. And we've built the skies, the heavens with strength, and we are its expanders. And today people can't explain the exponentially expanding rate of the universe. They have to call it dark matter.
The Stephen Hawkings of the world.
They don't know what to,
the-
because
yeah.
like, I don't know how, I can't measure it, but it happens. Allah's like, I'm the one doing it. And then, you know, وَجَعَلْنَا فِي الْأَرْضِ رَوَاسِيَ أَن تَمِيدَ بِهِمْ وَجَعَلْنَا فِيهَا وَجَعَلْنَا فِيهَا رواسي أن تميد بهم وجعلنا فيها فجاجا سبلا لعلهم يهتدون. And we have created on the earth firm pegged mountains that keep it stationary, and we made therein pathways that people use to be guided. وهو الذي خلق الليل والنهار والشمس والقمر كل في فلك يسبحون. He is the one who created night and day, the sun and the moon, all of these celestial bodies. This is the line that's amazing. All of which are in an orbit swimming. Falak, filka means orbiting, like that. In Iraq, we call a roundabout a filka, because you just go around like this, you know, orbit it. He's like, Allah says the night and the day, the sun, and all these celestial bodies, they're orbiting, but He says, yasbahun. Why swimming? Why? It's because when you have a body of mass, let's say on water, and you throw another body of mass near it, the rippling effect will come and impact the other one. So it's akin to gravitational waves. Sibaha, swimming, waves, gravitational waves. This is called the general theory of relativity. That's when Einstein came and you introduced this to us.
Einstein.
Right?
The Quran.
But the Quran came forth.
Thousands of years ago.
Clearly, look, it's showing you, I'm not going to conflict the truth. And I think that is a call for us to all pursue more intelligence.
I mean, we have many narrations in our own books. Like, for example, there's a narration in Rawdat al-Kafi talking about the rotation of the earth from Muhammad Sadiq alayhi salam. There are many narrations, and we could honestly have a few other episodes
just based on science.
Subhanallah. But the point we want to make here is, look, we have the resources, we have all this knowledge, we have a lot of depth to this religion. Our ulama have studied day and night and still have some of them still have barely touched the surface, as they themselves have said. So this religion that we have been given, alhamdulillah for this ni'mah, right? Like this ni'mah of the Quran firstly, and the blessing that the Quran has given us. Secondly, the ni'mah of Rasulullah sent by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide us, and the Anbiya, rest of them, each to their own level and status. And of course, the Imam Ma'sumin alayhimus salam, and starting off with Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, whose birth we are celebrating in this holy month of Rajab. Amir al-Mu'mineen was this type of alim personality. I don't know how to phrase it. It was this personality which people would go to for their knowledge. Within the community, we have examples of the second caliph going to Amir al-Mu'mineen when he didn't know how to do tayammum, or when he wanted judgment for certain things. Even the people who oppressed Amir al-Mu'mineen, they, at the end of the day, they could not dismiss his knowledge that easily, because they were all dependent on his knowledge. Amir al-Mu'mineen was that father-like figure within the community. Despite him being oppressed by rest of the community, he was still that knowledge-bearing person. We have narrations from Amir al-Mu'mineen that talk about Arabic grammar. Amir al-Mu'mineen, for example, to one of his students, the founder of Arabic grammar is Amir al-Mu'mineen. He says words are divided into three: al-ism, al-fi'l, wal-harf. And anyone who studies basic Arabic knows that this is the characterization from then until now. When Arabic wasn't any formal language, in the sense that there was no formal grammar to it, or there were just these rules of balagha and common understood laws, Amir al-Mu'mineen came in and is actually stapled, or
that's why he's
nailed in Nahj al-Balagha. Subhanallah. And that is a testament to our faith and our Mawla, because he, at the end of the day, he's not just our Mawla, he's the Mawla of the world. He has wilaya over the world. But at the end of the day, we are the alhamdulillah for that wilaya. We are the ones who accepted, at least by word, we're the ones who accepted that wilaya of the Imam Ma'sumin alayhimus salam in our lives. So that goes to show the beauty of this madhab
Alhamdulillah.
of tashayyu. So on that point, I think we want to open the discussion about Amirul Mu'mineen. And to wrap this podcast off, I think we have a good 15 minutes left. We want to discuss.
We need 15 years to
We
scrap
of
the
course,
surface.
subhanallah.
Imam
Just
Ali
the
wama
surface.
adrak ma awhal. Where are we even
Where,
gonna
where do we
start?
start from this person? But if you don't mind, Sayyid, I want to
sure.
open an aspect of
For
his
sure.
life that is that actually connects to rest of the Imam Ma'sumin that we discussed in this podcast, especially Imam al-Hadi in the aspect of tawakkul that we were
Yeah,
discussing
yeah,
of Sayyida Zainab and Imam al-Hadi alayhi salam. Imagine this, like you have come to a society of jahiliyyah. There's like no source of divine guidance there in that society. Rasulullah is the only one. Rasulullah is that first source of divine guidance. Now, Rasulullah is a close cousin of yours, but he has gone against the entire community of Quraysh. And we know the hardships that Rasulullah faced in his lifetime, from the stones being thrown at
His
him
own
to
family
the,
members went
yeah,
against him. Abu Lahab,
Abu Lahab, Abu
as well.
Jahl,
Abu Jahl,
yeah,
ahsant, yeah.
all these examples that we have in history, Abu Sufyan,
Ahsant, yeah.
the enmity they had to Rasulullah for his daring stance against their idols. Right at this time, I mean, Islam had 3 followers. We have a hadith, by the way. I just want to quote it here just to picture the significance of these 3 followers. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, "Bada al-Islam ghariba."
Sahih.
Islam started off gharib, poor, weak, unknown, and it will return in a weak form. So this actually testifies to our time.
Lonely.
Yeah, lonely perhaps. Yeah, Islam started off, Bada al-Islam ghariba. Islam started off lonely, and it will return lonely. Fatuba lil ghuraba. Glad tidings to those who were lonely, basically. It's to those who were with that lonely Islam.
Can I jump in?
Bismillah, Bismillah, tafaddal.
You know, Amir al-Mu'mineen, you bring a very beautiful point. The truth is a path of loneliness. The truth is not a very popular path. It's a path that not many people take because the truth hurts. You know, the truth hurts. The reality is some people, they know what's wajib, what's obligatory, what's haram, what's not expected from them. But they know it, but the truth hurts. It's hard to embrace it. You ask that brother with those habits that are really not improving him, are not helping him progress. You tell him, you know this is haram, right? And he's like, yeah, I do. But it's hard. It's hard to embrace the truth. At the same time, you know, you might ask a sister. I say, don't do this if you're a guy. Sisters, you don't know the circumstances behind what's going on. But if it's someone that concerns you in your life genuinely, many will tell you, look, I know that the attire is obligatory, both for the brothers and the sisters. But the thing is, it's just the truth hurts. It's difficult. I might not be respected as much. I might not have as many opportunities. I enjoy showcasing myself. And these things, you know, that's the truth. Because how many people are on such a path? That's why Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen says that if you want to embrace my way, prepare to not have many friends. Prepare to be lonely. Because we have standards. And our standards are high. Where we won't tolerate any degree of injustice. But to not tolerate injustice means you have to put yourself in friction. Friction is heat. Heat is fire. And I'm not interested to do that. I want to be comfortable where I'm at. We're Shia. By being a Shi'i, that means that you are willing to put yourself where Allah expects you. You have a taklif. Otherwise, why is Sayyid al-Shuhada? You mentioned his sacrifice. A lesson for us. This is just a good bedtime story and we cry and move on. We have to put actions into our own words. We have to walk the walk, talk the talk. Amr bil ma'ruf, nahi anil munkar. Nahi anil munkar means something important. It's like I see evil and vice. It's an obligation on me to come and change that. If I can't do it actually, physically with my hands, I have to do it with my tongue. Speak the truth. Change. Call for reform. If I can't do that, even change it with your heart. And don't undermine the power of dua or prayers. But that's Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen. He tells us that, look, as you mentioned, Islam started lonely. It'll end lonely. So blessed are those who are lonely for purposes of remaining forbearant and principled.
And I think nothing embodies that example of, and nothing embodies, I guess, if you want to call it the strictness, but obviously not a bad way, that Imam Ali had when it came to religious matters. There was no playing around with
Intolerance.
I mean, even some of the companions used to go to Rasulullah and say, Rasulullah, what is this? What is Imam Ali doing? He's too strict. He's too strict with us. Even for example, when his brother came to him and requested, we've also heard the famous story,
Yes,
requested
yes. Requested
a
from
few
money from the
money from the
treasury.
treasure, and then he heated a rod and he brought it close
Yeah,
to him, and then he's like, oh, what are you doing? He's like, you want me to give you money from the treasury, and you can't, like, we can't handle this heat. How are we gonna handle the heat of Jahannam?
exactly. Yeah.
And that's his own brother. That's what. And nowadays you see these we call them in Arabic wastat, like basically what I'm trying to think of the English word. I lost, it's lost the translation. Basically, where what we do is we give privilege to certain people.
Yeah.
Privilege might be
Unfair privileges.
unfair privileges,
Elites.
exactly. And I think there's one story that really stood out to me, or like how Imam Ali, just his aim was to establish just a common religious, I don't want to say religious strictness, but he wanted the Deen of Islam be followed punctually.
Beautiful.
And
And people need to understand that it's not about being strict or whatever. If you actually follow Islam,
it's
to
for
the
your own
T,
sake.
not just that,
Yeah.
it will be the best experience.
Yeah.
If the Islamic model and example is actually applied and respected, everyone will be happy. You know, today people are recognizing the importance of having God in your life.
Yeah.
Because hedonism, nihilism, godlessness leads to depression and sadness. That's why the church is something important. That's why people that may not necessarily be following organized religion still can't help but say, I have to believe in a higher power. So it's like the truth is there. We kind of talked about the fitrah
Yeah.
earlier.
That's
And all of this just goes to show that our language is strict is boring. It's not about strict. It's about
be
I
punctual.
won't
Be,
exactly.
yeah.
I will be intolerant when it comes to cases that want me to jeopardize my faith. No,
Yes.
being happy on my faith makes me happy.
SubhanAllah. One example I'd like to give, it's not from the life of Amir al-Mu'mineen, but of course one of the Shi'as of Amir al-Mu'mineen, from the life of Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam, one of the companions of Imam al-Sadiq known as Ammar al-Dhahani.
Mhm.
Ammar was a companion. He was in the court of the Kufa, and the judge was presiding over there, and he was giving testimony for something. Uh, so the judge was a strict Nasib. He hated the Imam Ma'asumin alayhim salam. This judge saw Ammar there and said, قم يا عمار لا تقبل شهادتك فإنك رافضي. We won't accept your testimony because you're Rafidi. So get out of here, right? This judge became strict at Ammar. Ammar started to cry. And the judge asked Ammar, Ammar, if you don't like this title of being called Rafidi, why don't you abandon? Why don't you disassociate yourself with it? Why don't you leave the Imam Ma'asumin? Why don't you leave this version of true Islam that you have? Ammar said, you have misunderstood me. I'm not crying for that reason. I'm crying for two reasons. One for myself and one for you. Firstly, I'm crying for myself because you have associated a title to me that I do not deserve. For a Rafidi is someone who he commands whatever Allah wants. And he prohibits whatever Allah dislikes. He does whatever Allah loves, and he hates whatever, he loves whatever Allah commands, and he hates whatever Allah dislikes. This is a Rafidi. And for you, I am crying because you have taken this high position of being a religious person, of being someone of spirituality, of being a Rafidi, a rejectionist, and applied it to the lowest of people.
Allah.
Now, and given it a very insignificant role. Imam Sadiq heard about this incident and said, Wallah, if this was enough for Ammar to be considered a true Rafidi,
MashaAllah, you know,
and
this,
for all his sins to be forgiven.
Ammar is unhappy that he's called a Rafidi, and here I should cringe when you gave me that nice long introduction earlier. You know, somehow, where are we? Where are some of these people? MashaAllah. But yeah, I love that. That's a beautiful reminder. Exactly.
I mean, this goes to the testament of the followers of Amir al-Mu'mineen and their status, right? I claim to be a Shia of this great personality, this radiant light that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent to guide us, to establish justice. The justice of Amir al-Mu'mineen is incomparable to anything else. For example, the story of a Jewish woman. Forgive me, I'm talking too much. Muawiyah stole the anklet of this woman. Muawiyah's soldier stole the anklet of this woman. Amir al-Mu'mineen heard the news and said, I wouldn't be surprised if someone died hearing this news. Right? The justice of this person, even to a Jewish woman or someone
forget
like
that,
that.
even to an ant. Like,
Subhanallah.
if you were to tell me that you give me the seven heavens and the earth and all that there is and its treasures just to steal the outer skin of the seed from an ant, I wouldn't do it.
SubhanAllah.
There's one story that really resonates me, and I guess as we begin to conclude the podcast, we have a couple of minutes left. Regarding the life of Amir al-Mu'mineen that we can all benefit nowadays, is first I want to comment on the point about how Amir al-Mu'mineen we mentioned was very punctual when it came to Deen, and nowadays sadly we see this exam, and because he was punctual, sorry, that's why people um deviated away from him. Now we see examples, some certain brothers and sisters when they want to practice their Deen, people begin like, oh, you're being too religious, you're being, oh, why are you bringing religion up now? And so certain brothers and sisters face this faces, I guess, problem where people begin criticizing them, begin distancing themselves away from them because of their
So
holding to
people
religion.
stay away from others because
Religiosity is, I
they
guess, the
embrace
common
their
term.
religion too much. According to them.
Similarly, or not embrace too much, like following what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told them
Yeah,
to do.
subhanallah.
And then,
I had something
yeah,
like that when I
tell me.
was younger. I remember it was time to pray.
Yeah.
And this is not to showcase, look, I pray, but it's just time to pray. It's like, you know, our bare bone minimum expectation.
Mhm.
I get up and praying and like, hey, what the heck? You're praying. We're all here enjoying ourselves. You're too religious.
Yeah.
No, as if that's a bad thing. It's salah only takes how long? 3, 4, 5 minutes. If you were to pray the whole entire day, how many minutes did I waste? 20 minutes?
Yeah.
Do you know what that is compared to 24 hours? That's like 1 minute. 1 minute. If 15 minutes, it's like 1 minute. You know how much that is in like an entire year? That's like 460 something thousand minutes. You know how much that is in the lifespan of 85, years and like an average lifespan? That's, again, it's like less than a year of all I did was worship. It's not a bad exchange, but people still see it as it's like, the end of the world. You committed a crime and things of that nature. So I echo that sentiment very
Thank you
much.
so much. And then I want to just get to this story before the time is up. And I want to relate to this how Imam Ali's, I guess, led by example, and how we should all do this. Is there's a certain story he's in a battle with one of the Khawarij of Muawiyah. So then, as Imam Ali is fighting the Khawarij, he was able to break his sword, the Khawarij's sword, and the sword drops.
Yeah.
So then this Khariji looks at Imam Ali, and then so imagine now like
Yeah.
he's in this stance, power, valor, anything, and you're Imam Ali, and then you have the sword. You're like at any person,
You could just finish it.
just finish the battle, finish him, like they say. But then Imam Ali lowers down the sword, and then now the guy is shocked. That's like, why are you lowering the sword? Like, I mean, this is prime time. Like, this is the easiest kill you're gonna possibly have. He says, I don't kill a man that's fearing for his life. So then the man tells Imam Ali alayhi salam, tells him, I've heard that people say that you do not turn away a beggar. He's like, yeah, do you have a request? He's like, yeah, my request is that you give me your sword. Imam Ali is like, Tfaddal, here's my
Allah.
sword. He gives him his sword. So now the guy has the sword. He's like, astaghfirullah. He tells Imam Ali, in a way, you fool, how do you give me your sword? Now I'm the one in power. Now I'm the one that can kill you. And then Imam Ali says something beautifully, that you think you're the one that's gonna bring death upon me. I only fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's the one that my age is in his hands. He's the one
Allah.
that can, if I want to die today, if I want to die in 100, it's in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I think that echoes the amount of tawakkul he handed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is why when he was struck on the latter days of Muharram, he said, Fustu wa Rabbil Kaaba.
Ramadan.
Why? Because Ramadan, sorry, because of the amount of tawakkul he had on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He knew all his life was serving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, believing in the decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So to be able to say that statement, to be able to say Fustu wa Rabbil Kaaba, is knowing that I had full tawakkul on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, knowing that everything that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decreed in my life and decreed in my life is from him, and anything that comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is obviously good and blessing. So that's one thing that really resonates with me.
I would not have given him my sword.
It's-
That's why that's
No,
Amir
I mean-
that's why that's Imam Ali,
I
and that's
know.
why we
And
are
then,
here.
subhanAllah, the amount, like, he's able to use that moment as a lesson, to turn it into a lesson.
Son, beautiful.
So imagine, like, in the amount, and just the amount of, I guess, self-control you have to have at that moment. That's what Imam Ali says, the greatest
Discipline.
form of jihad is disciplining oneself from away from the shaitan. Because I mean, for us, sometimes during Ramadan, it's just hard to discipline ourselves from eating. This guy's in the middle of a battlefield. I mean, adrenaline's rushing, and then you just hand him your sword.
Yeah.
Personally, I would be scared of my life. I'm just going in
That-
there.
That's why Imam Amir al-Mu'minin is the most disciplined person in the world. He is the student of the man who said, "Addabani Rabbi fa'ahsana ta'dib." The Rasulullah said, "My Lord has disciplined me, and in the best way possible." And if that's his prime student, I don't imagine the apple falls
Of
far
course.
from the tree.
Alhamdulillah.
الحمد
Rabbil
لله
Alamin.
الذي جعلنا من المتمسكين بولاية أمير المؤمنين. I mean, we could continue on for
Same.
days,
Inshallah.
For days.
years.
Next time, inshallah.
Yeah, inshallah,
Inshallah.
inshallah. This is
One of
this is
many.
only the first time we're doing this with Sayyid. Sayyid will be back, inshallah. Sayyid,
Inshallah.
Inshallah, we're
service.
honored.
for sure. We are
privileged.
honored, privileged. I
With
mean,
all the words in the dictionary I could possibly prescribe this.
I'm
See-
so grateful to have joined you guys in this first episode. I really am proud to see what you guys have done, and I'm excited to see where you guys will go only on the Halaqa podcast.
Well, thank you so much. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.